I heard Jim Hansen speak yesterday, actually at the Chabot Science Center, not in San Francisco. But he brought up, he'd kind of given up on governments and the churches, and he's looking for legal recourse.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about how do you compel the world to reduce its emissions, to decarbonize. And I guess I'm going to go back to the same argument that if the technologies aren't there, the world is not going to accept a willing contraction of its economy, which is what you would have to do in order to reach those emissions limit. China and India have already said in the international negotiations that if there's a trade-off to be made between development and carbon dioxide, they're going to come out in favor of development. So I don't think that the Chinese government's going to fall under the jurisdiction of US courts or even international courts. So I see the legal approach as having very little possibility for policy success, probably even less than cap and trade if that circumstance can be imagined. At some point, we're going to have to just realize that if we want to accelerate innovation, all of these complex paths through the legal system, through the legislative system, are going to be less preferable than keeping our eye on the ball and just going right there and focusing on innovation.
Next question.
I had a bright idea. I don't think the American public really understands what you're talking about. I've wrestled with this a lot. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to take one city in our country and put an additive into all the gas tanks one day, and that additive would turn green or purple or blue, and people could see. See, right now, the gas companies are really smart because you can't see the pollution. And what the Americans respond to their senses. Now, if you could see a huge green cloud over an entire city every time the morning they got up, got in their cars, started their cars, and this terribly dense green smoke came out of the exhaust pipes, and they got on their freeways and they couldn't see where they were going, maybe they would understand this is not working, folks. We need to change direction, and that would put a pressure on the whole system.
Yeah, you raise a really good point having to do with the climate issue more generally. And that is that none of us can experience what it means for the climate to change. Because climate change, by definition, is a process that occurs over at least 30 to 50 years. And without science, we wouldn't even be aware of the issue of climate change. And that's why it has been so difficult to formulate policies that are based on asking people to pay some price today for benefits that might be felt over decades and centuries. And one of the core arguments of my book is that we have to design policies so that the benefits and costs are felt much more on the same time frame. And that means for climate change, expanding the issue to talk about jobs, to talk about pollution on shorter terms, to talk about clean energy development, to talk about energy access in the developing world. These are the sort of policies that I think can align short-term costs with short-term benefits in a way that the conventional climate debate cannot. If you expect people to, particularly in India and China, to give up their prospects for development because of concerns about long-term climate change, it's just not going to happen.